back, Addicts, to another anime review. I'm Josh.
I'm Colt.
And today we're going to be talking about My Hero Academia Season 1, which this is a show we both liked. I got onto this way past the train left the station. The
train left the station, but now he got on at a later date.
I frickin' took all for ones just so I had the speed to catch up with the train. That's what my situation was. But anyway, so we're coming back and reviewing this. We are going to be doing the third season when it ends. So stay tuned for that. But getting right into it, if you guys haven't watched this show, it's basically set in a world that 80% of the population has some form of superpower.
Or as they call it, a quirk.
Yeah. And our main character, who's Izuku, he is somebody that was born without any quirks. But he has this overwhelming devotion to become a hero and to save people and to live up to his idol, who is the #1 hero in the world called All Might. But getting back to it, you see him kind of go through his normal day-to-day routine at school. He has a friend that is Bokugo? Well, I don't know how you say it. I'm sorry.
Bakugo. And it's
Bakugo, okay.
Bakugan.
Bakugo. Sounds like a freaking transformer.
It is.
But anyway, and you get to see kind of his relationship with other people, and specifically the people that have quirks. And even though he doesn't have any quirks, he's always fascinated by heroes. So he takes notes of everybody because he wants to take everything, like the best qualities of all the other heroes that he's seen, and learn from them. Well, we get to see very early on in the show that he actually gets to meet up with All Might. And we figure out a few things about All Might, which we won't go into detail here, but basically, Izuku ends up getting All Might's power, and we get to see him kind of, learn this kind of power, and he actually gets into the school that he always wanted to go into, which is the academy that All Might went to, which is a all-hero. It's basically
it's basically all heroes, and basically kind of the concept of it is that it's the most prestigious school that people can go to.
As it wasn't hinted up in the title for My Hero Academia. But anyway, so you get to see in the first season kind of his entry into the school, and then also some preliminary tests that they go through, testing like their skills, their quirk levels, like how powerful they are, kind of settling up their teamwork, kind of seeing where they're at now and their ability with their quirks. And then at the very end of the season, we get to see a peek into the overarching league of villains, as they're called, which is the main antagonist of the show. And we get a nice big battle at the end, too, that's very nice. That gets into kind of some of the characters. The main guy, he gets into the top tier class of this academy, and so he's put in the best class, and, as all other classes do, he has a bunch of classmates. We won't go over all of them because there is a lot, and not all of them are extremely interesting or important to the plot, but a few would be, obviously, the main guy, Izuku, also his best friend that we talked about earlier, who has fire or combustion abilities. Then we got Uraka. Please help me with this pronunciation anytime
Eureka,
you have. Whatever.
Ochako, whatever you want to call. She has a weird name that, we're American. We can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm not a weeb. Please, anime gods, forgive me.
But she has the power of anti-gravity.
So here's the thing, is that it's kind of weird. Everyone has their ups and downs to their quirks. Like, hers is that if she uses it on herself, she eventually gets nauseous.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that the way she uses it is that she has these little pads on her fingertips. And she has to touch all 5 of them on once. So, like, say she did it to Josh right there, he could float now.
Yeah.
Just whee!
But
then the way she releases it is she has to touch all of them together like this. So...
And she has to touch things, so like if it's not very good from a distance, it's only good up close. There are a few other ones like Shoto and Tokiyama and stuff like that. Those are all characters that we see early on, but we don't see them until they're already in the class, because you can get into this academy by recommendations. A lot of the main parts of the class had to take an entrance exam where they had to prove their skills in a physical way, but they were just scouted and said, hey, do you want to join? Because we think you'd be good. So some of those are actually more the intriguing classmates, I would say, because their abilities are pretty cool.
But then you have, because Uraraka is kind of Izuku's basically, or Izuku's like best female friend at the time, kind of love interest. But then you have his like kind of best male friend who is very strict on the rules. I mean, you gotta get in 2 lines on the bus.
Yeah, and his name is Lita, and he has this power of, like they call it engine or something like that.
Yeah, they call it engine, and it's basically he has 2 engines in like his calves. That help him run really fast.
Biologically, that could never happen, but you know what? It's anime, so we don't care. It's pretty cool,
It's a different universe.
Yeah, but his character's pretty cool. I would say he's one of the more, I guess, compelling characters, along with Shoto, because you get a little glimpse of their backstory. Very snippets in the first season, but it gives them kind of a more mysterious vibe that leads for a lot of exploring. Obviously, there's All Might, which we explained in the beginning. He's the #1 hero. He's personally my favorite character of the show, and it's mainly just because of I think his character is pretty funny, and also he has some things that you wouldn't necessarily think that an all-powerful character like him would have. So I think that makes him really intriguing, as we see later on. But he actually connects to the plot pretty well, because he serves as Izuku's mentor, and he's also a teacher at the academy. And so we get to see more of a hands-on deal with all the other heroes as well. There's also other teachers too, like the main Class A's homeroom teacher is Eraserhead, which
well, I think he's just called Eraser, but everyone just kind of like you know that his whole thing is just like it's weird. His quirk is kind of cool though. I do like his quirk. Just the whole fact that he can like stare at people and just be like, "Yep, your quirk's done. Bye."
It's very useful for a disciplinary action in the classroom. I think that's something like you would have to have in this case. And then the League of Villains, we touched on that very briefly in the plot, and we're not going to go over too much detail because their introduction is something that's really, really cool, especially in the first season towards the end.
Plus, you really get to see a racer fight for the first time, and you get to meet the other hero that's kind of with them named 13, whose power is also pretty awesome. But then you meet with, I can't really remember his name, the main villain whose whole thing is basically petrifying people.
Shigaraki?
Yeah,
Shigaraki. Yeah, he's one, I would say, as a, not like the main bad guy, but one that you'll see probably the most. He's a very interesting character because he has a lot of layers.
Yeah,
like an onion.
Especially when you get to the 3rd season and it kind of gives his backstory even more. It gets kind of like, oh, wow, I can't believe that's what's happening.
So I think now we're going to go into our favorite parts / moments. We won't spend too long with this because we want to try to keep this relatively short for you guys. But for me, I think one of the cool things is just seeing one of the strengths of the show is that it has a very likable ensemble cast. Like I said, not all of the characters are either interesting or likable, but there's a good hand. I would say probably like at least half of them you really do like. And you know, the main character is an interesting guy. He's definitely got a lot of sympathetic and relatable features about him, which that makes him interesting. I wouldn't say he's probably the best character in the show, at least for me. But there's a lot of aspects, especially in the first season, where you kind of see him as a child and stuff like that. And those scenes are not necessarily like my favorite parts of the show, but they are parts of the show that I'm like, dang, that's really sad, and that's like I can get behind his reasoning.
Because it's one of those things, because you know, like we don't live in a world where you have superpowers, so it's like one of those things. Like I think every little kid at one point dreams like, oh, I wish I had some kind of power to use. Well, he lives in a world where basically almost everyone has some kind of power, and he's one of the few, like, he's one of the 20% that don't.
Yeah, like he's literally in the minority.
Like that would like if I was in that world, that would like destroy my like confidence and stuff.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, even in like today's society, it's like a small a small child can be like really influential with the things he experiences.
Small
Chad. And so, you know, like if you were like, let's say like 4 years old, right? And you were like watching some superhero program and you're like, when I grow up, I want to be him and I want to fly around. Well, you know, we don't have heroes. We don't have abilities. So like your parents, you know, if they were good parents, at least, I'm like, that's impossible. You can't do that. But can you imagine like for a kid, like for the, you know, the first like however long that their obsession lasts with that, like that devastates them, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same way, but like this has potential to carry on into his adult life because this is an actual real thing.
Yeah, and I would say personally, for me, like my favorite part of the anime, so at least in the first season, was definitely like the fight between Bakugo and Izuku, and the reason why is just Izuku really shows that even though he's not as strong or well adapted to his quirk as Bakugo is, because the thing you guys have to understand is that you get your quirks by age 4.
Yeah, so you should have a pretty good handle on your
exactly.
stuff.
And the thing is that Izuku doesn't, but he's still able to beat Lita and Bakugo with the help of Uraka, also known as by her superhero name Uravity, aka her name in Gravity.
It's a unique name.
Yeah.
I give her props for that.
And just the way they do it is, I think it really sets home the point that this is your main character. Yes, we're going to focus on other characters later on, like during the second season, they focus on Shoto a little bit more. And then it's just one of those things second best guy. And they also focus on Lita a little bit more.
Third best guy.
Basically. But it just kind of culminates into, like, they focus mostly on Uraka, Izuku, and Bakugo at this time. But then they eventually start focusing on more. And just this one fight really cements home that he might not have a handle on his quirk, but he can still win the battle if he does his best.
Yeah, because he's somebody that's more of a strategist. Like, he can think out, or, you know, he can come across as a strategist, but he's only thinking on his feet because it's just natural for his mind to think of these things. And so that's what makes him kind of more like the dangerous aspect.
Yeah.
Because even though, you know, he's got basically the most powerful quirk in their world, he's not necessarily this overpowered character, at least at the beginning of the series. And so that's kind of interesting to see, you know, like a Humble's beginning, getting into, he's getting everything that he always wanted. You know, I'm not going to spoil any, like, parts of the first season, but I will say, the last battle, or, like, the last, like, few, like, 3 or 4 episodes, definitely probably, I could say easily, my favorite part. It's just so good. The fight is really great, and it really sets the stage for just the scopes.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. The only other scene that I will say that I liked, and it was mainly just because, I don't know why I found it really funny, but it's just the scene where it's like a child, Izuku, and he's just sitting there and he's watching the video of All Might, and he's just... It's so funny. I don't know why. It's so great. And then there's another part where he's doing the same thing, but he's like crying, and it's like, oh, man, that's so heartbreaking. But
I will say, one of my other favorite scenes, though, is anytime All Might laughs.
Yes, All Might. All Might is such a great guy. I love him. He's got I don't know, like, he's serious about justice and everything. Like, he is the epitome of, like, what a hero should be. But at the same time, he's such, like, at times he's such, like a doofus, I guess, because he doesn't know what to do, like, especially in mentoring and stuff like that. So it's seeing, you know, like, this guy that, like, the best, like, he's presented as the best of everything, have these struggles, you know, he doesn't know. So
it really cements the fact that they have powers, but they're still human.
Yeah. And it's just good. We're going to start closing this down because it's already getting pretty long.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into our rating. For me, this is a solid FFA. I really, really like the first season. There's a couple things that maybe seem a little slow, but that's just because, you know, we're introduced to so many characters, and we're trying to build up somebody that like Colton said, is getting used to a power that everybody else around him is already basically established in. And so for those kind of moments, it can get a little bit hard, but I still say it was enjoyable all the way through. And I finished it relatively easy. Because I came out after the whole season aired, so I finished in like 2 days. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't bother me for the pacing at all. So for me, solid FFA.
And I'm not sure with him. It's a solid FFA. The intro song and just the way they build everything, I think, just really worked well.
It really did. By the way, this opening is the best one in the series so far. Fight me.
That's just like the company who did stuff with it.
Yeah.
There's one company name that when you see the title in the intro, you're going to laugh.
I don't even think you recognized it until I was watching with you, and I was like, hey, what's that? And you're like, I've never seen that before. That's freaking amazing. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. But anyway, guys, that'll conclude this review. If you want to check out our other stuff, subscribe to the channel or look in through our playlists. We got a bunch of stuff going through, whether it's video games, anime, movies, you name it. You can also follow us on social media and SoundCloud. We got a podcast coming out every Sunday or Monday. It just depends on where you're at. The links for that will be in the description. So we'll see you guys next time. Later, Addicts.